It happened abruptly on a plane. I was woken up by some turbulence, and instead of going back to sleep, I stood up and demanded the nearest stewardess bring me some sugar water. My voice was coarse, and I could feel every muscle tense across my body, as if I was preparing to do a backflip. After crushing a Mountain Dew, I practically barked like a dog. More sugar. It was terrifying. Something awful had seized all executive functions of my brain. That's the best way I could put it. It's like my consciousness got kicked out of the driver's seat, and I was forced to watch everything from a cage. I could still see, and hear, and feel every sensation in my body. I just had no input, no control over what I did. Ma'am, please calm down. We'll get you some soda. Sugar me, now! Horror quickly blended with embarrassment. I guzzled a dozen soft drinks in less than 3 minutes, which resulted in vomit all over my pants. People gasped, got up, and moved away. I became that woman on the plane. Do we have to restrain you, ma'am? Not if I have more sugar. Instead of heading home towards my husband and 2 daughters in Toronto, I went straight to the travel counter to book a new flight. Lost. Angels. Excuse me, ma'am? Plane me. You'd like to book a flight to Los Angeles, is that right? Despite speaking in broken monosyllables, everyone was very willing to help. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very thankful that I live in a very progressive, nice part of the world that somehow tolerates strange speech and vomit-stained pants. But for once, I just wanted an asshole to call me out for a random screening. I wanted someone to detain the insanity controlling my body. Instead, I helplessly watched my visa get charged a fortune. First class. Extra legroom. Next available flight. Upon arriving in California, a group of women dressed in very fancy blazers held out a sign for me. The sign said Simone, which was my name. The palest one, wearing cat-eye sunglasses, approached with a glossy-toothed smile. Hello, gorgeous. How was the flight? Divine, the thing controlling me said. Good. Let's freshen you up. In public, the women laughed and talked about fictional renovations. Everyone would take turns talking about sprucing up their patio, or how they were building a yoga den. In private, however, the women spoke in wet, gagging noises, as if they were trying to make speech sounds not designed for human mouths. The whole car ride from the airport, I was engulfed in drowning duck noises. As a means of distraction and potential escape, I tried to focus on what was being squawked, but that got me nowhere. The language was indecipherable. The one who wore a sun hat which obscured her eyes was honking at me especially. Honk, she said, pointing at me over and over again. Honk, honk. The only consistency I could make out in their language is that whenever they spoke to their sunglasses leader, they would make the same double gagging sound. Quack, quack. And so, imprisoned in the backseat of my brain, I mentally started to make notes. The leader I will call GG. My name is Hryonk. As we swerved through a busier commercial district, GG slowed her driving. In fact, everyone in the minivan became quiet and started scanning the surroundings. The car pulled over a curb, near a preacher who was proselytizing by a rack of pamphlets. He might have been a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness. GG stepped out first, followed by what I would call her right-hand loyalist, a woman who perpetually wore a violet scarf. From the crack of my window, I watched GG and Violet introduce themselves as fellow evangelists. They said we were all going to a public prayer, and that we could use more preachers outside to attract attendees. That's very kind of you to invite me, the man said. I'm used to just sticking out to my corner here. They insisted and said it was all for the greater good, but the man still politely declined. You should know something, GG said, and took off her sunglasses. Something in her eyes had the man absolutely captivated. "We are angels, sent by God." There was a pause. The preacher continued to stare without blinking. "You're... what?" "And we're having a congregation." The car's windows rolled down, revealing our 6-women crew. At this point, I should mention that before I became Body Snatch, and even before I became a mom, I was a fashion model for many years. In fact, all of these possessed women looked like idyllic models, with their long, shiny hair and unblemished faces. We were basically a postcard for Sephora. "You..." The preacher gawked at all of us. "You're angels?" He didn't object when Violet grabbed his rack of brochures and placed it in the trunk. And he also didn't object when Gigi let him into the passenger seat in front of me. The car doors were closed, and we were off again in seconds. "So does this mean the end times are near?" He was visibly stunned, laughing. Violet, who sat beside me, secured a gold ring along her finger. A dart-like needle protruded from it. Something like that. She slinked an elbow over his shoulder and stabbed the ring into his neck. "Ow! Hey! What is that?" Violet pulled away. "What, this? It's Bulgari, off Saks on Ventura." "Why does it burn?" The man clasped his wound, patting it as if it were on fire. "Ah! Ah!" After a few squirms and moans, he fell completely limp. The women honked an aggressive nasal sound. A celebration. The thing controlling me joined in, honking at full volume. The abandoned hotel they inhabited was somewhere between Los Angeles and Bakersfield. It was hard to be precise because my eyes weren't always looking out the window. "Let me give you the grand tour," Violet said. Or at least that's what I assumed the seal-like barking coming from her mouth meant. The foyer was filled with flats upon flats of energy drinks. Monster, Red Bull, Rockstar, and dozens of other brands that all looked the same. Our bedrooms all looked like normal hotel bedrooms, except there were massive locks on the outside handles. Violet also gave me a peek at the rooftop balcony patio, where I wish I could have averted my gaze, or closed my eyes, instead of staring right at the pile. There were about 24 bodies, each one lifeless, each one dressed in very nice clothes, their Sunday best. The preacher was dumped to the back half of the pile, the side with all the priests. It reeked bad, as if some of the corpses were clearly decomposing. But the thing controlling me wasn't bothered by the smell. Violet laughed her goose honk laugh and took me downstairs. It was in the dining room where everyone stood in a circle, awaiting my arrival. Formerly, this must have been the space where they held buffets and parties, but now it was just a completely bare room with energy drinks and glass pipes on the floor. Gigi came up and handed me a 4-pack of Guinness tall cans. The thing controlling me proceeded to guzzle each one. For the first time, my conscious state became fuzzy. The jet lag and sleep deprivation was finally catching up. I slowly brought myself to the floor. The rest of them smiled and honked as my hands curled beneath my head. I fell asleep. A kick to the stomach woke me up. I rolled away and grimaced, staring at the black Prada heels worn by Gigi. It was a full minute of reflexive dodging before I realized it was now me who was crawling and sniveling. The real me. I was moving my own limbs and shielding my face. I was shriveling up in a corner and screaming like a lunatic. "Please, let me go. Please." Somehow, when the thing controlling me fell asleep, I was able to take command again. The honking entities surrounded my corner and nudged another frightened woman towards me. I had never noticed her before because she had worn that massive sun hat all day. It was Shula. I was so caught off guard I barely noticed that I had control over my speech, too. Shula? She used to work at the same modeling agency as me, and we often booked the same gigs because our skin tones were complementary. We even did a big eyeliner commercial for Mac once. You have to do everything exactly as I say. Shula's Mac eyeshadow now streamed down her cheeks. She looked as sorrowful as I felt. If you don't listen, they'll only hurt us more. I stood up in my corner, eyeing the other 4 possessed humans. Their pupils were all dilated, probing me with intensity. What? What do you mean? I asked. Shula's head hung low. This is your initiation. They want us to fight. Fight? She stood up with reluctance and rolled back the sleeves of her oversized sweater. We're gonna have to make it look like I beat you up. What? No, Shula, I'm not gonna fight you. It's not up to us. You have to do it. I wasn't about to fight in some perverted boxing match. I decided to run. I tried to bolt to my left, past Violet, who was watching Shula, but the entity's reflexes were too quick. Violet seized my wrist and hurled me against the back of the room. I slammed into a vinyl counter, breaking a nail, but miraculously not my skull. By the time I stood up, the circle of women had surrounded me again. There's no escape, Simone. Shula curled both her fists. Her sadness looked terrible and deep. You need to fight. Show you're strong. Let's get it over with so they don't toss you. Toss me? Shula nodded, fighting back tears. They've tossed bad pics before. Weaklings. So you have to put up a fight to show you're worthy. I don't want them to toss you. I looked at the counter behind me. It was adjoining a kitchen. I didn't know how long my free will would last, and I also didn't know if I would ever have it again. I could have made many other decisions, but the mantra in my head was, escape now or die trying. Although their reflexes were quick, I thought maybe if I vaulted fast enough, I could grab a kitchen knife in time to properly retaliate. So, that's what I tried to do. I flipped myself over into the kitchen, and this time, no one grabbed my wrist. Scrambling off the linoleum floor, I shot past the fridge and industrial sink. I shot past the walk-in freezer and fryers. But footsteps weren't far behind. By the time I reached another exit, someone grabbed my hair. You have to fight, Shula screamed, and dragged me to the ground. In seconds, I was pinned with a ladle against my throat. She held a knee onto my stomach. That's it, just thrash around a little. It doesn't have to last long. I flipped her over and grappled her ladle, putting it on her own throat instead. Shula may have been taller, but she did not have tennis lessons with her kids. No, Simone, they can't see you beat me. I pressed on the ladle like I was testing one of my rackets. I was single-minded in escaping, and if it meant I had to choke out my friend, then that's what I had to do. You gotta stop, please, please. Her strength was fading, but I held on. It was only once her cheeks had turned blue that I finally let go. Gigi bent over me with a smile. Well done. What a fine vessel Urgic has chosen. My friend laid passed out on the floor. I stood with 4 smiling women, who all smirked and patted my back. Flats of drinks were open in the foyer. They handed me rock stars like candy, honking and undulating in some kind of trance. All the while, Gigi held onto my shoulder, not seeming to care that I was still Simone. Her squeal-like whispers felt like slugs entering my ear. Snishak, Gishak, Ri, a new supplicant for thee. Snishak, Gishak, Gaul, soon ours, one and all. During the chanting ceremony, Violet's purple scarf was taken off her neck, and then wrapped around my own. The entities circled around me. They bowed and breathed at me, anointing me with their exhalations. Gigi took me to my room and squawked to the entity inside of me. I could feel it trying to wake up, playing a cerebral tug-of-war with my body. Then Gigi looked me in the eyes without her sunglasses. She didn't have pupils like a normal human. She had the grid-like eyes of an insect. You are now Urgik's tool, human. This is a high honor. Urgik is vice praetor of the Old Ones. The thing controlling me, or Urgik, had briefly seized control of my head and nodded. Gigi put sunglasses over her eyes to speak to me, the real me, directly. Cooperate with Urgik, and you will triumph. Resist, and we'll toss you like the others. Understood? I didn't know what to say. Gigi squeezed and held onto my cheek like I was some toy. Then she left without a word, and turned all 6 deadbolts. I wasn't certain, but I had a feeling that if I fell asleep, I would lose all control again. That Urgik would reassert himself. That's why I was left here with more beer cans around me. They wanted me to doze off. I had to stay awake. There was a discarded laptop in the room. It was probably planted to test my allegiance or entrap me, but I didn't care. I used it to email my husband and people I trusted. I told them I was taken hostage somewhere in California, and that I needed their help. I told them my kidnappers were part of some bizarre cult. But I didn't tell them about my possession, the preacher, or any of the crazy body snatcher stuff. I didn't want them to think I was insane. They would never believe me. But hopefully you do. That's why I also posted this here. If you live between Bakersfield and LA, and have ever driven past a pink, run-down motel, please, call the police. Send someone. Save me. Before the thing controlling me takes over again. This story was brought to you from Shadowbox Archives. Visit patreon.com/Shadowbox Archives to access free horror stories and narrations, featuring work by myself and other talented horror authors and narrators. Check out the description below and join for free to gain access. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward, and if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow, and see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.